Hi guys, give me a few seconds. I'm gonna do the audio thingy on my laptop and then we can get started, okay? Hold on, and I'm ready. Let's do this. What's up everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel / my podcast. I am the Marketing Nomad. My name is Prithvi Madhukar. I am the author of 0 to 4 Figures and Self-Loved. I'm also a podcaster, YouTuber, Etsy shop owner, Skillshare teacher. All of the links are in the description box below if you'd like to check it out. Welcome to episode number 75 of What's on My Mind, where we're going to be talking about 10 questions that I do have for you to help you with self-reflection related to personal growth. Now, if you are new here, What's on My Mind is a series where I talk about topics related to personal transformation as well as mindset. Okay. Without further ado, okay, because we've got 10 questions to cover in this podeo, let's get into the first question that I do have for you. So of course, if you are getting into self-reflection with respect to personal growth, it's very important for you to first analyze what exactly are your core values. And that is the first question that I do have for you. What are your core values that guide your life, and how do they influence your decisions as well as actions? It might be helpful for you at this point to actually go into specific examples in your life. For example, there was a situation that came up this year that forced you to reevaluate your core values, or it showed how strong your core values are, or it just gave you a deeper insight into what exactly is your core value related to that particular topic. So it's easier for you to give situations and circumstances while you are outlining your self-reflection related to your core values, and talk about the situation, talk about what it taught you, talk about the core value that it actually showed you, or the core value that you actually stood by in those situations. So the reason why I personally love this question is because, especially when it comes to self-reflection, one of the main reasons why we self-reflect, or it's important to keep time for self-reflection, is because it really helps you understand yourself. And as an extension of that, when you understand yourself, it becomes that much more easier for you to make decisions based on what is aligned to who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, how you handle situations, what exactly do you stand by, so on and so forth. And so when you are clear about your core values, when you are clear about how your core values influence the decisions that you make in your life, I think it becomes that much more easier for you to A, stand by your core values when it comes to tough decisions that you may have to make in your life, and B, it also helps you create a better life for yourself, because you know, hey, this is my core value, I'm not going to compromise on that. And so the decisions or the actions that you tend to take will align with that, because you are absolutely clear about the core value that you do have. All right, so that would be the first question. What are your core values that guide your life, and how do they influence your decisions and actions? And I guess as an extension of that, I would also say, how can you ensure that your core values influence your future decisions and your actions? How can you be more cognizant of your core values so that they influence your future decisions and your future actions? Because the more you make decisions and take action that is aligned to your core value, the more aligned the life you lead becomes, right? Because it is absolutely what you believe in. And so the consequences of the decisions and the actions that you are taking tend to be a little bit more aligned when you stick by your core values, when you are applying your core values into the decisions and actions that you take in your life. All right, so that's the first question for you. Number 2 is, what goals have you set for your personal development? I really like this question because, especially in a given time frame, it's important to set goals, even if it is for your personal development. I mean, I'm a solopreneur and all the time I'm setting goals for my business. But one thing that I've come to realize is it's also equally important to be setting goals for your personal development as well. And I don't know if I should be like sharing this or not, but on my wall over here on the right side, I have a bunch of post-it notes, and they've actually got goals for me related to different aspects of my life, and one of it is actually personal development. Like, what is my goal? What is the target that I want to hit? What is the kind of person that I envision myself becoming? What action, as an extension of this question, you could go deeper and ask yourself, well, what action have you taken in the time frame that has passed towards your personal development? What is the new goal that you want to set? What are the goals that you've hit? What is the new goal? And what actions are you going to take towards that? For me, with relation to my personal development, and of course, different areas of my life, I actually have like a target word for the year. And so, for example, with respect to growth, all right, personal growth, I want my word for the year is peace. I'm actually looking at my wall as I'm saying this. So, my word for the year is peace. I want to take actions. I want to have thoughts. I want to have a belief system that leads to overall peace in my personal growth. Like, I want to get to a point where in my growth, I am working towards peace. And so for me, that works. Just having one word for the entire year, or even a time frame as well, that could be helpful for you. So it's important for you to evaluate where exactly do you want to end up with your personal development, with your personal growth. Each one of us, we have our own things that we envision, the person that we want to end up becoming. It could be that you want to maybe be more disciplined, or maybe you want to build healthy habits, so on and so forth, or you want to break an unhealthy habit, so on and so forth. So it's important for you to have these goals so that you at least know which direction you want to head. And of course, as an extension of that, because you have a serious goal in mind that, okay, this is what I want to hit for this aspect of my life, I think subconsciously you tend to take action towards that, and the decisions that you make tend to be more aligned to the future that you envision yourself, or the future you that you envision. So, for example, in my case, for my growth, the word is peace. You can choose a word for yourself, and then you can also write action items. In my diary, I actually have, set intentions. There's even a page where I write down what is my actionable steps that I am going to be taking each month towards that word. So for me, the word was peace. So you can also try that as a different way, but of course, feel free to use this as a starting point, and you can choose to I guess I would say attack this goal however you wish to. But for me, it's always about, okay, well, this is the word for the year, and then each month I review, all right, these were the actions that I took towards the word that I have towards my personal growth, and then I set intentions for the next month, and then I work towards that. So that's how I personally tackle it. You can do it however you wish to, but it's important for you to at least ask yourself that question, like, okay, what is the goal that I have for my personal development? All right. And as an extension of that, I would also say, well, what dreams do you have related to your personal development? That also could be, of course, when you set goals, it's usually with a time frame in mind. So dreams would be a little bit more of an extension of that, like a wider time frame. So that also, yes, absolutely, you can do that as well. So that was the second question for you, all right? Let's get into the third one. The third one is very, very important, and something that I've come to realize as an entrepreneur myself, and that is, how do you actually view success? And as an extension of that, how do you view failure? What is your relationship with success? What is your relationship with failure? How do you perceive success? How do you act when you perceive to be successful, I guess I would say? And then how do you act when you perceive you are going through a failure or something is not working out? What are the thoughts that you have? What are the beliefs that you have at that point about yourself? Then what are the actions that you tend to take when you perceive you are successful and when you perceive you have failed? Other things that you can also, self-reflect is, how do you react to success? How do you react to failure? How do you react to someone else's success? How do you react to someone else's failure? How do you react to your own? So on and so forth. The reason why I believe this is so important is because in life, the relationship that you have with success as well as failure actually dictates how your next steps are going to show up for you. I really truly believe that, because when you don't have a healthy relationship with success, and let me give you an example. For example, you tend to fear success, all right? So the actions that you tend to take would be hindering you from achieving success, because that's your relationship with success. But the more you are cognizant of it, the more you recognize that, all right, I might fear success, but I'm not going to allow that fear to hinder my next steps. I'm going to be more cognizant of that. I'm going to work on my relationship with success. The more you can take steps that become, I guess, that create a healthier dynamic between you and success. So it's important for you to be cognizant of how you perceive success and how you perceive failure as well. All right, so understanding your own personal relationship with each of these two is very important, because sometimes when you have an unhealthy relationship with either of them, it actually works both ways. What happens is you tend to keep taking steps that are not going to be aligned with what you truly want and what you truly envision your life to be. And so for me, the base point of how I look at an aligned life is basically, it really boils down to how one views success and how one views failure. As an extension of that, what exactly is one's relationship with success and one's relationship with failure? And the minute you can get a healthy dynamic between these two, like a healthy relationship with success and healthy relationship with failure, let me tell you, things become so much more clear for you to, either take the next steps with respect to your life, whether you've had a success, whether you've had a failure. Because of that healthy dynamic you have, things become clear. Your next steps become clear. An aligned life for you, the steps towards that actually become a lot more clear, which is why I actually like self-reflection. And I actually take a lot of time to self-reflect. The reason is it really does give you the clarity. These are areas of your life that you really have to dig deeper, and the more you understand yourself, the more you understand the dynamic of your relationship with each of these things in your life, I think it just helps you make more informed decisions for the life that is yet to unfold. All right, so that would be the third question for you. The fourth question is, what are your limiting beliefs? What are your fears? What are the self-doubts that you seem to constantly be battling, so on and so forth? And one thing that I do want to say at this point is, when you are asking yourself these questions, ask from the no judgment zone that I keep talking about. There has to be absolutely no judgment. You are asking these questions to get to know yourself, to understand yourself better, to know which parts of you need to be worked on, which parts of you need to be respected, which parts of you need to be, you need to be grateful for, admired, so on and so forth. So it's more about keeping yourself in the no judgment zone, where you're just kind to yourself. You're just understanding that, all right, because of this incident in my life, this is something that I fear, or I am projecting someone else's limiting belief with this respect of my life, or I tend to have these self-doubt patterns emerging when I find myself in these kinds of situations. So it's just understanding yourself, because the more you understand yourself, when you find yourself in these situations where your self-doubt is creeping up, your fear is creeping up, or your limiting beliefs are stopping you from taking the action that you really want to, when you are cognizant of all of these things, it actually helps you understand how you can overcome that. Not just that, it also gives you a way for you to build self-confidence, a way for you to be intentional about building your self-confidence with respect to these areas that are hindering you. All right? So it's very important, especially when it comes to self-reflection, understanding what is holding you back. Okay? When you understand what is holding you back, that's when you can actually create an action plan to help you overcome whatever it is that is holding you back. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I am constantly, like, there's even a framework in my book 0 to 4 Figures where I talk about how to overcome limiting beliefs. And of course, the thing with limiting beliefs is once you work on one, there's going to be more propping up, so on and so forth. And as you move through life, you're going to find more limiting beliefs and perhaps some old limiting beliefs coming back again, so on and so forth. That cycle is always there. It is natural, it is normal, right? And so for me, doing this constant self-evaluation and self-reflection of my limiting beliefs is more about, okay, well, this could stop me in the future, or this is currently stopping me right now. So how do I build my self-confidence to a point where I can either work around whatever is holding me back, or I can exceed whatever fear is holding me back? So, that just gives me an action plan, because sometimes when fear or self-doubt or limiting beliefs are holding you back, it can feel a bit suffocating. Not just that, in that moment when you are fearful or your self-doubt is creeping, you might freeze also, right? That also happens. And so when you are cognizant of it, your mind starts shifting towards, all right, I know this exists, but now let's figure out an action plan. So you're kind of creating that clarity in your mind. Self-reflection really brings about a lot of clarity. I can't emphasize on that enough. So for me, just understanding what could be holding me back or what is holding me back just helps me create an action plan to overcome those. So that would be the 4th question that I do have for you. The 5th one is a very simple question. It is, how do you feel about the life that you have led so far? And for me, this question, it's a simple question, but I take a lot of time to answer it. And I ask myself this all the time. Like, this is one question that you will always find me asking myself. How do I feel about this year that has passed? How do I feel about the last 5 years of my life? How do I feel about my childhood? How do I feel about my teen years? So on and so forth. And it's more about understanding what parts of it felt good to you and what parts did not feel good to you. There will be some parts of the life that you've led up until now where it just didn't feel right, but you kept forcing things to happen, or it was just completely unaligned. And so for me, the more I look back at the life that I've led up until now, I basically look at the parts which were aligned to who I am and the parts that were not aligned to the person that I was. And I use that as information for the future decisions that I make, because I know, okay, well, I took this step at that point in my life and it was, very misaligned. I did not feel good about that. I don't want to feel that way again. And so I'm not going to make that mistake again. And then there were some parts where I was completely in alignment. I'll give you an example. When I was doing my engineering, the engineering part was absolutely misaligned. Like I could not, it just didn't fit the kind of, person that I am. And honestly, I was not at all happy with it. But the college fests that, I helped to, organize, the flash mob that, I organized, the dance that I would do, all of that, it felt so aligned with the person that I was, coming up with strategies for the flash mob, coming up with those creative ideas, so on and so forth. That felt absolutely aligned to the person that I am, that I was also at that point in time. And so for me, one thing that I take away from that entire period of my life is, well, that's how I want to feel, that's how I want to feel majority of the time, alignment. And if even to this day, if something does not feel aligned, if it's giving me that, I guess it just doesn't feel good. That's how I would put it. For me, misalignment is it just does not feel good. For me, the minute I feel that, the minute something feels forced, the minute there's an energy block, I'm just like, nope, I'm out. And so the reason why I'm able to be so dramatic when it comes to misalignment is because, I've taken the time to reflect on the life that I've led up until now, and I recognize that this is how I feel when I feel aligned, this is how I feel when I don't feel aligned, or when something's just not meant for me, so on and so forth. So I think understanding how the life you've led up until now is important because it helps you make better decisions in the future, like what works for you, what doesn't. And B, I think it also reduces the possibility of regret. I really think so. I mean, I personally don't have any regrets, and we've talked about this in another podeo, but I do understand that some people may not have the thought process that I have. They might have some regrets. And so for me, just looking back at my life, saying, all right, this could be something that I could have done better, just having that information helps me make better decisions in the future that I won't regret, okay? Or at least decreases the chances of leading a life that you could be having regrets for. Yeah, that was a little bit of a complex sentence. I don't know if it made sense, but we're just gonna we're just gonna sweep it and move ahead, okay? So that would be number 5, and something that I've written in my notes is, as an extension, something that we talked about is, how can you ensure future alignment? How can you recreate the periods of fulfillment that you felt in the life that you've led up until now? That also could be a really, really good way for you to self-reflect on this question, all right? Then we go on to the 6th question. So change is absolutely constant in life, right? And for me, my life in very distinct phases has just suddenly changed, suddenly shifted. And so that has been a pattern for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people also feel that way about their life. And so one question that I usually put in my self-reflection is, how do I handle change? What has changed in the way that I handle change? How can I handle change better for the future? Because, everything is unpredictable, and you don't really have much control over certain aspects. And so for me, just constantly asking myself, well, what has changed in the way that I perceive change, my thoughts about it, my beliefs about it, my feelings, my emotions that I'm going through with respect to change. And of course, you can also write about specific situations and how you feel about that change. How do you want to feel about that change? And how do you get to a point where you make peace with that change, so on and so forth. So for me, I think this question is really important because change is constant. And the more you can, I say in quotes, mentally prepare for it, by at least preparing yourself. I know you can't really fully prepare for change, but at least, having some set systems and processes, some set thoughts that you can go to, some set of beliefs that you can fall back on when you are going through a rough period of change, or when you are going through something that throws you off balance. Yeah, I think that's very, very helpful. Right? It just makes you a little bit more prepared. And there's nothing wrong with being a little bit more prepared, at least in my experience. Of course, yes, it's going to knock you down either way. But I think when you are a little bit prepared, at least, in your headspace, I think it becomes a little bit easier for you to get back up. That's what has been in my experience. So one question that I keep asking myself is, well, how do I handle change? How can I embrace it better? and what are some of the habits or routines that I can include in my daily life to help me cope with change better. So reflecting on all of these can be really, really helpful for you. Hold on, we are at the 25-minute mark, so I'm just going to just turn it off and then turn it on because the cameras usually have a limit of 25 minutes. All right, give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. So that was the 6th question that I do have for you. The 7th one is very, very crucial because, well, that's the whole point of having this self-reflection process, and that is to understand your decision-making process. What exactly is your decision-making process? How do you perceive your thoughts when you are supposed to make a decision for yourself? What are the core values? Again, we've talked about that. What are the core values that you do have that contribute to your decision-making process? What is important to you when you are making decisions for yourself? What are your non-negotiables? This is actually a concept that I've talked about in my book, 0 to 4 Figures. And frankly, it's helped me a lot. Understanding what are your non-negotiables, what are things that you are willing to compromise on, what are the thoughts that you usually have when you are making decisions for yourself, what are the feelings, what are the emotions that particular decision-making situations actually evoke in you, so on and so forth. And understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, how can you add your strengths to your decision-making process. For example, if you are a very logical-minded person, or the decision-making process that you do have is very logical, but sometimes in life you also do have to make decisions with your emotions, with your heart, So how do you bring that balance in you? Because it's not always logic. Sometimes heart also does play an important role. And for example, if you are someone who is very, very heavily based on making decisions with your emotions, how can you bring that balance of sometimes, using your mind or using logic or using rationale to make decisions, so on and so forth. So understanding what are your strengths and how that can help you, but also understanding what are your weaknesses, what are the areas that you're lacking, and how can you work around those weaknesses? How can you Of course, there are some times where you can't really overcome those weaknesses in the immediate time on hand. Maybe it's a very, very long, drawn-out process. So in cases like that, what I do like to ask myself is, well, okay, I can't overcome this weakness right now, but how do I work around it? Maybe in the case where if I'm someone who tends to make decisions based on heart completely without much rationale, and that happens too, right? Sometimes I found myself in situations like that, and it's in very specific situations, but some cases, some situations, some aspects of my life, I am extremely logical and methodical, and there's high levels of rationale. And so understanding that about yourself is also very important. And so in a case like that where you're leaning too much on one side and you can recognize it as a weakness, maybe seeking out help, like professional help, or seeking out a mentor, or talking to your trusted ones, working through that with journaling or even meditation, so on and so forth. Those are just ways for you to help yourself, but it's important to first understand what exactly is your decision-making process, and it could be different for different situations. Like, for example, I just told you, in maybe towards relationships, you have a different decision-making process. Maybe towards your business, you are a completely different person. Like, you make completely, you have a different decision-making process, which is actually very true for me. So on and so forth. So understanding that, understanding how you show up in different situations, in different areas of your life also is very important, because the more you can understand that, the more you know where you need to get help from. And the second is, when you know this is how you make decisions, you can easily understand if that decision-making process for that particular area of your life, is it helping you, is it working against you, and how you can fix that if it's working against you. And if it's working for you, how can you keep strengthening that decision-making process? That's also important as well, right? As you move through life, as more areas of your life come to light, so on and so forth, right? So for me, that would be number 7, understanding what exactly is your decision-making process. As an extension of that, what is your decision-making process for different areas of your life? And how do you feel about it? I think that's also important, and how do you want to make it better? That's also important. So that would be number 7 for you. Number 8 is specifically with relation to relationships and connections in your life. So when we are talking about personal growth, one thing that's very important with respect to relations and connections, in my opinion, is boundaries. Like understanding, all right, well, this is the relationship that I have with this person. This is our dynamic. This is the connection that I have with them. These are the boundaries that I wish to set for myself, to protect myself, or to make the relationship healthier, so on and so forth. So constantly evaluating that, because you are growing as a person. The other person in that connection, in that relationship, regardless of what relationship it is also evolving as well, right? Or changing in different, maybe they're having different thoughts, different opinions, so on and so forth. I think one thing that I understand about relationships is that when there is an understanding that the person you are today, or the person that both of you are today, may not be the same people who are going to show up the next day, I think understanding that about relationships and giving that space for both of you to evolve, I think, is what contributes to a healthy dynamic. And so understanding that, all right, well, this is where I am at today. This is how I show up in this particular relationship, because you too are going to show up differently for different people in your life, so on and so forth, right? And they too, it works vice versa. So understanding how you're showing up, understanding how you're feeling about that relationship, how does it contribute to your health? Is it deteriorating your mental, physical, and emotional well-being? That's important to understand as well. And if some parts of it is not working out for you, how do you resolve it? How do you show up in a way where both of you can find that peace and joy in that relationship? How can you set boundaries for yourself? How can you communicate those boundaries to the other person? Because as much as we can think, oh, okay, well, if they loved me or if they cared about me, they would know my needs. Nah, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. You have to be able to communicate. What exactly do you need? What exactly do you want? What are your boundaries? What works for you? What does not work for you? I think the more you can be clear about that with the other person, I think that just gives the relationship a better chance at working out. Of course, it has to be both ways as well, but one way that you can go about this is understanding yourself. Okay, so understanding how you perceive relationships, how do you show up in different relationships in your life, how do you want to show up, what can you do to bridge that gap, and then with respect to that particular relationship or that particular connection, you could also be asking yourself, well, how can I set better boundaries for myself? How can I allow them to set boundaries with me? How do I create an atmosphere where they're comfortable to set boundaries with me? They're comfortable to communicate their needs to me. I'm comfortable to communicate my needs, so on and so forth. So taking a look at each and every relationship in your life and taking the time to self-reflect is really, really important, because at the end of the day, I mean, we are social beings, right? Humans are social beings. And so, which means, as an extension of that, relationships and connections can either add or subtract from your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. So understanding that relationships and connections have a huge tie to your emotional well-being, your mental, your physical well-being, I think because there is such a huge tie with that, and as an extension of that, it is also related to your personal growth. I think it's important to reflect on that from time to time as well. All right, so that would be the 8th one for you. Now let's get into the 9th one. For me, in particular, I have this tendency where it's like, okay, I hit this goal and then I'm always constantly wondering, okay, what's the next goal? Where do I have to go next? What do I do next? So on and so forth. I'm always on the next thing. And so something that I have tried to be more cognizant about over the last 4 years is, how do I actually enjoy the journey more? How do I perceive life as a journey and not just as a series of points where I'm hitting goals? How do I perceive life in a way where I find happiness and joy and peace in everyday moments rather than the dopamine hit that comes with hitting goals? How do I find that balance between working towards my goals as well as enjoying where I am at right now? For me, that's been a bit of a struggle. But something that I've been actively working on for the past 4 years. So today, I guess I'll say I'm a little bit better. There are moments during the day, I'm not even kidding, moments during the day where I just stop, I pause, and I say, okay, take a deep breath, enjoy this moment. What's happening in this moment that's working for you? What's good in this moment of time? What do you feel lucky about? What do you have gratitude for? And so this is something that I do almost every single day, and at random times, when I'm just sitting by myself, these are questions that I ask myself. So it's not necessarily, in my opinion, that self-reflection has to be this huge thing where you sit down for hours and do it. No, it can even be few seconds that you take in that particular day. And for me, sometimes, most of the times, I guess I'll say, it happens in the night when I'm lying on my bed. I take a deep breath. I really do. I take a deep breath and I say, okay, what am I grateful for in this moment of time? What am I enjoying in this moment of time? Whether it's the breeze coming through my window or I hear the leaves rustling, what exactly is happening in my present moment that I want to enjoy or I can enjoy? And then I move on to bigger things like, okay, this happened during the day. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that, my health is getting better and, so on and so forth. There are a lot of things that I'm grateful for, and I am very, very intentional about taking time to enjoy it, because for me, otherwise I don't, so unless I'm intentional about it, time just slips by, and I keep getting deeper into, I guess, the cycle of hitting the next goal, so on and so forth. So for me, this is very, very intentional, and probably a very important question that I keep asking myself almost every day and multiple times in a given day. So the question is, well, how do I enjoy the journey more? How can I focus on the present? Yes, goals matter. Yes, it's important to be working towards that, but that does not mean that you do not enjoy what is happening in this present moment of time. You take in, you breathe in what's actually working for you, even though there might be things that are not working yet or things that you are working towards. Okay, so that would be the 9th question that I do have for you. The 10th question is more of reflection in terms of your accomplishment with respect to personal growth. And I think it's very important, because sometimes we can get so deep into personal growth or, keep working towards improving ourselves that we forget to actually remember that we've come this far, And sometimes, especially when you keep trying to work on bettering yourself, it can feel a bit demotivating, because when you are thinking of improving yourself, you're always seeing a lack in yourself, right? That's how you know you have to improve. And so for me, what I perceive is sometimes constantly being in that mindset of improving myself, or constantly being in that thought process that, okay, this is where I have to hit, that's where I want to be, so on and so forth. It can feel a bit demotivating, because I'm constantly looking at the lack. Not just that, it takes time, right, for personal growth. And so one thing that I've come to understand is celebrating your success is equally important on this journey. So the question that I usually ask myself is, well, what exactly has been a significant accomplishment in my personal growth over the last 6 months or over the last year? And frankly, I know I said significant, but it could even be, little things where maybe I'm smiling because this happened to me recently, and this was the answer that I gave myself very recently when I asked myself this question. So in October, I was kind of going through my own personal stuff, and I actually took a decision that was completely different from what I would have usually taken based on my patterns of behavior that were not working for me. And then this time I just completely shifted and I said, no, we are not going down that route. We are making a decision that is healthy for us, even though, it feels weird at this moment of time. And for me, that was a big personal growth. I mean, the decision to another person may have seemed like, yeah, I don't know what was such a big deal out of it. Like somebody else looking at it could have felt that way, but for me it was. And that showed significant personal growth for me. So taking time to acknowledge those little moments and big moments as well, where you are showing yourself that you have grown. I think that's very, very important. And I think you've got to be intentional about it. These questions that I'm sharing with you, the reason why I personally find these questions so powerful is because we can get so swept up in life, in what's happening, what's going wrong, or working on improving ourselves, hitting the next goal and the next goal and so on. It's very easy to get swept up in all of that. But when you take the time to reflect, especially on the questions that I've shared with you, I think it allows us to just pause for that moment of time and take a deep breath. Just pause and take a deep breath and appreciate the life that we have led up until now, because I think that deserves to be respected. I really think the life that we have led up until now, the person that we are as well, deserves to be admired, deserves to be respected, deserves gratitude from ourselves as well. All right? So the last question is more, like, what are you proud of? What happened in the past 6 months that you are proud of? What was an accomplishment that you made in your personal growth? Or in the last 5 years, how have you grown as a person? And you can also, mention specific instances, like specific situations which show like your improvement in your personal growth, so on and so forth. All right? So that is something that I've written in my notes. One question that I put over here is, well, what did you do differently this time that showed personal growth? And how can you continue that? How can you continue, because just because you make that decision once does not mean you're going to make the same decision again, right? Choosing personal growth. So how can you continue making that conscious choice of choosing personal growth, so on and so forth? So for me, that would be the last question. And just to wrap up this entire podeo, one thing that I really realized with respect to self-reflection, and I've always been the kind of person who, self-reflected, but I just wasn't very intentional about it. And for me, understanding that being intentional about it, you need to be kind to yourself. You have to get into the no judgment zone. And the more you can get into it, the more you can just look at yourself just as a person, not to judge, not to berate, not to find flaws. It's just understanding how you work and how you show up. I think that's powerful in itself. And I think that is what I wish for you, because the minute you can be intentional about your self-reflection, it just gives you that much more clarity about life, about the next steps that you should take, and about where you want to be. That's it. It's just as simple as that. And with that clarity comes a balanced life, and a balanced life where you are able to manage your emotions, you're able to manage the relationships, the connections that you do have, you're able to manage the things that are not working in your favor, the things that are out of your control, so on and so forth. And we've got a lot of those, don't we, in life? So for me, I think just taking the time to be self-reflective is very, very key. And I gotta say, coming to this point in my self-love and healing journey, I've gotta say being self-reflective has contributed a lot to the clarity that I have in my life today. Yes, there are some aspects that are going completely haywire, absolutely chaotic, but at the same time, the peace within me, I'm able to hang on to that. And the reason for that is, I gotta tell you, it's self-reflection. All right, let me just quickly wrap up this podeo by giving you a few ways that you can self-reflect, just as a quick thing. Different ways that you can go about this. I'm just going to read my notes. You can do it through journaling. Of course, that's the most common one. You can do mind mapping. That has helped me sometimes. If you are more of a visual person, mind mapping can help you. You can even doodle. You can even write down, I guess I would say draw out your thoughts. That has helped me as well. I've actually drawn out my vision board, and I'm not an artist. I gotta tell you, I do not have any artistic abilities with respect to hand drawing. But just drawing it out, what was in my mind onto paper, has been therapeutic in its own sense. So if that works for you, go ahead with that. Then you can write letters to yourself. You can write letters to people. You don't have to send it. You can just write it. You can do visualization, you can do meditation, and you can even do something that I personally do a lot, is self-interview yourself. Okay, just keep asking questions. So use the questions that I've given you as a starting point, and then just keep asking yourself questions. Interview yourself. Basically, just interview yourself as a third person, and that might also help you get your answers flowing a lot faster or a lot more simpler. I guess I would say that. Okay. So yeah, that brings me to the end of this podeo. Thank you so much for listening all the way up until here. If you want to catch my 2 books, 0 to 4 Figures and Self-Loved, they are there on Amazon. Links are in the description box below. 0 to 4 Figures is a book on 61 stories and lessons with respect to my digital entrepreneurship journey. It talks about topics related to self-love, business strategy, marketing, growth mindset, success mindset, relationships, so on and so forth. My second book, Self-Loved, is a compilation of 1,000 journal prompts related to healing, growth, and self-discovery. Of course, self-reflection is actually a huge part of the book. There's also other topics like trauma healing, inner child healing, manifestation, so on and so forth. Other than that, I have a series of productivity planners, journals, and trackers. It's called the Simple Series by the Marketing Nomad, available on Amazon. At the moment of publishing this podeo, there are 18 of them available. Different ones like 5-day workweek planner, 1-page project planner, so on and so forth. You can definitely check it out. The simplest way to find all of my stuff on Amazon is to search my name. It's PRITHVI space MADHUKAR. Once you search my name on Amazon, you'll actually just get the author page, and all of my stuff will be available there. If you have any thoughts about this podeo, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do give me a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, because that tells you every single time I do upload a new video. Other than that, well, if you want to have a conversation with me, you can catch me on my Instagram page. It's at The Marketing Nomad. Okay, that was I'm done with my outro. Thank you so much for listening all the way up until here. I can't wait to hear more of your thoughts. Of course, if you have more questions with respect to self-reflection, do put them in the comment section below. I'm sure they will be helpful for me as well. Okay, guys, I hope you can use this podeo as a starting point for you. Happy self-reflecting. Bye-bye.